Hi developers, welcome back to my channel. It has been a while since my last video. I hope you busy with some projects, real world projects, articles, and my newsletters as well. And interestingly, I found some of the content is not really fit to the article format or text format. I think some of the content is more fit to the video. For example, a refactoring process, like if you have some piece of code in your hand and you want to enhance it, and I want to show the process of doing that step by step. I think that is more engaging, more interactive, and for my subscribers like you will be more benefit from it. So that's why I'm decided to pick it up or re-pick it up, and showcase some real world scenarios that I'm recently have been working on. I decided to do that as a series. I'm not sure how long I can continue to do that, but I will try my best. Some of the examples are pretty, domain specific, like it's really linked to my recent work, but I will try to make it general or generalize it, so that you can easily understand the context and then hopefully apply the principles, the underlying principles to your work as well. I don't have a best name for the series yet, but this one is the first issue or first video of that series. By looking into the analytic data, I found that most people are very interested in a long form, interactive, refactoring process, and that's what the feedback told me. So I will keep doing that in this series. Hopefully you can learn from the work I'm doing, like from the beginning we talk about the background, the design challenge, and then step by step we will refactoring that the original one into something more elegant, more flexible, and easy to maintain. Yeah, that's pretty much about the purpose of this series. Yeah, let's get started. For the very first video of our series, we're going to refactoring a context menu component. For context menu, normally you would right click on somewhere and then you see a menu list, and you can click one of them to see something happening, yeah, this is pretty much context menu. So the menu item is from the backend service, like the assign to me, commit. They're all from backend response. We are calling the backend service to get a list of items. They have defined the type of the action, the menu item, and when you click it, something will happen. And there are two types of menu items. One is the button menu item. That means when you click it, it will showing a pop-up or mode dialog, and you can then in that mode dialog to do something interesting. Another type is a link. So when you click that link, it will navigate you to a new page. For example, the tricky part is it will need to send a request first and then get the definition of this menu list, and then it will manipulate that list to generate this on the UI, this menu, context menu on the UI. And the code is, if we look at the stub of that response, it's pretty much like this shape. So when we send a request, we'll get the object from the backend JSON. Its operations is a field name. It has an array defined in it, and there are a few items in the array. So normally in a real production environment, this list is very long. So that means you will have a very long context menu like this one. But I'm just demonstrating some refactoring techniques here. So we emit this, we basically reduce the size. If we look at the context menu component, you can see here in the drop-down menu, there is a big chunk of code that deal with operations. So fetching the data or managing the loading status or error handling is not the most important part. So we ignore that part. We just assume the data is already there. So we just use the data to render the context menu. We have already got some tests that can be verify the current status of the implementation. So for example, the first one is we pass in the single item into the context menu, and then we assume the assign menu item is corrected. And then for the link, when we say assign to me, and then we expecting that there is a link on the page, and that the link destination is issues assigned to me. And also we have another test that will skip the one we don't want to generate. For example, the log work is an item that the response has this item, but we don't want to surface that on the UI. So we will skip or filter it out. And so when we pass the data into the context menu, we expecting the assign to be on a document, but the log work to not to be in a document. So that's pretty much about the context setting. So first thing first, we need to understand the code. So sometimes you need to refactoring or add a test to help you to understand the code. If it's hard to understand. Sometimes you do refactoring or extracting a small piece of the logic into a normal language or like a domain language to help you to understand the logic. But here it's not super complicated, so I will walk you through the what the code is doing. So essentially, we have the operations returned from the response, like so, this one, and we will reduce it. So when we reduce, we will check if the URL, if the field, internal legacy field of the response array item, if this one is included in the URL override fields, and if it does, we will use the URL defined in that map instead of using the one that returned in the response. So basically, there is a URL defined in a response, and there is another one in the override. So for some items, we will use the overrides to override the response URL. And that map is defined in the URL overrides fields map. So before we do anything, before we generate the menu item, we'll do a URL overrides for some of the items. And then we will do a if else check here. So we will skip a certain amount of menu items. So for this field, if it's in a skip field list, for example, the log work we just saw, we won't generate the UI for the log work. And if it's not in skip fields, we will say if it's included in a dialog field. If it does, we'll generate a button menu item. Otherwise, we'll generate a link menu item. So again, to recall, the assign and the commit are all button menu item, and this one is a link button item, menu item. That means the dialog fields So that means the assign and the comment are all included in the dialog fields. And you can see here the assign and the comment, they are all part of the dialog fields. In a real production code, this list is very long. It might contains like 20 or so, and this one as well. It might contains like more than one, and in the response it's super long, and we just filled out a certain amount of skipping fields, and then we will override some of the URLs, and we also will distinguish which is a dialog, which isn't. So we will generate the button and the link correspondingly. So this is the logic of the menu item generation. If you have watched my previous videos of the refactoring videos, you would know that the very first thing I would do for any kind of refactoring is to examine the current test and see if it's covered all the cases we are used in a component. If it doesn't, we will need to add the test cases first, just to make sure that we won't break anything when we do the refactoring. So here, one of the keys I think probably worth to cover is that given we have this stub, we will assume on the page there should be 3 items, and one of them is the link. So it's more like an end-to-end or integration test. So to do that, we can simply duplicate this test kit first. Let's say we command D, we duplicate that one, and we'll see renders the whole menu, whole context menu. And instead of doing the data here, we will request that data from the file. Let's say import the response from the response.json, right? And then we will use this response to render instead of the static data. So we put here, and we want to see that expect the screen to get all by row. We know that in a list item, there should be a list of list items, and to have links of 3. And we want to see assign is on the page, assign to me is on the page, and also the other one, commit, should be on the page. We can also verify that log work is not on the page. So now if we run the test, it should pass. That's the current behavior, and that's exactly what we see on a browser in the list here. So if we run all the tests here, it should still passing. That's pretty cool. And now we can jump into the refactoring. All right, so we have that test to cover us or protect us from making any serious mistakes. And now it's time for us to do the refactoring. So normally I would, for such cases like a if else inside a reduce or a map, I would use a filter instead that filter out the field with this condition, and then inside the map or reducer, I don't need this check anymore. And it has 2 benefits basically. One is make the logic inside the map simpler. That's, I guess, the biggest one. And the second one is it's also reduce the number of items you have to process inside the reducer. So it like when it filled out like half of the item, and in a following reducer or map, you only need to deal with the second half, which supposed to be more performant. So Another thing I normally would like to do is for this kind of internal legacy field, or sometimes it's a very ugly name, or like the name doesn't make much sense, I would also try to rename that as well. So talking about the rename, it's more like a map operation, right? So rename doesn't change the number of items in the list. So that's when you use a map. And the override, obviously that's another type of mapping. So I could do like rename the internal legacy field to something more simpler, and also to the URL mapping. I can extract this part of logic into a separate function, and then pipe them together to do the reduce later. So I can do a map here. Inside the map, I'm doing operation. Inside it, I will return a name, a URL, and a field. So the name, URL, and the field are all from here. I can simply replace this operation to this one, and then I can move this logic into here. And for the internal legacy field, I can give it a better name. Let's call it field. It's simpler, and then we can use field instead of this mostly most for internal stuff, and then return that field. So and then because I changed the shape of the data shape and I returned a name, URL, and field, there is no legacy field anymore in a downstream. So I will change that too, and all the internal legacy fields like so. So now I have a map operation before I filter the data down to the reducer. And then because the logic has already been covered here, I don't need this part of code anymore. So we'll just remove them. And because we are using URL instead of given URL, we don't have to rename it on down here. So now the code is pretty much like this. And if you run the test again, everything should be still passing. Let's run all the tests. Okay, it's all passing. So now we have a map step before we do the reducer. And as we just said, we can replace the if statement with a filter operation. So we do that by filter. We want to filter by the field, right? So we do the field. We just pick up the field from the return value from the previous map, and then we will check the exactly the same thing here, like so. So we replacing the if statement with the filter, and now we can inside the reducer we just do a push, and it doesn't change the meaning of the logic. And now if we run the test again, everything should still passing. But now we kind of break down the logic into a few chunks. Each chunk is taking a particular responsibility of the whole chain. So for example, the first one, the map is doing the date converting or date mapping, and the filter is doing the if else check, like filter out the one should be skipped. And in the last part, the reducer. So now if we look at the review the reduce function. It's not a reduce anymore. It's more like a map, and keep pushing either this or this. That means we can change that into a map. For example, we can do that. The logic here is if it's included in a dialog field, we return a button, otherwise we return a link. So we can put this logic into a map. Let's say we do a map, and in the map would do something like this one, and we are not pushing anything because it's map, right? And we simply return the if else check. If it's included field, we return button, otherwise return the link, and then we don't need the whole argument for the reducer anymore. So now it's pretty much like this, and if we run test again, it's still passing. And if we look at the UI, on the UI it's still the same, which is good. And at this stage, I would normally do a step further to give these small functions a name. So now it's all anonymous functions, callbacks. I would make it more explicit. For example, here, what we are doing is we are converting the response data into a menu item data. So let's create a function called convert response or it's operations to menu item data, for example. And we will copy the whole thing over to here, and this is a type. We will give it a better name, operation, if we have that type defined. Yes, we have it defined, but we didn't export it, so we'll export the operation and import it here. So now the convert operations to menu item data takes the operation as an input, and it reproduces the menu data shape as output. So we can then replace this whole block into a named function. And now it's much shorter in a context menu component. Similarly, we can extract this one into a function. Let's call it maybe filter legacy fields, right? And we can give it it's typed as a string. So now we use this function here to replace the anonymous block. So now it's much readable. The operation mapped to menu item data, and then we feed out the legacy fields, and then we do a map. And similarly, we could give this one a name as well. Let's call it convert menu item data to UI, maybe. And then we can give them some type definition, menu item data to be something like this. It's a string, URL is a string, field is a string. Right, so we will use the type here, and once we have this type, we can use it to replace the whole block here. What is the problem here? Yeah, the type is not matching because we have the URL here. We don't need to fall back from here. Instead, we can do it from here. URL is URL. If URL doesn't exist, we will fall back to the empty string. And now if we look at the issue menu item, it's just like 3 lines. The beautiful part is it's very readable. Like for the operations we get from the backend, we will firstly convert the operation to menu item data, and then we fill out the unnecessary fields. And the last step is we convert the menu item data to UI. That means we will have the perfect UI as before. And the test, as we just saw, is still passing. And if we review the implementation, we could group the fields like a URL override fields, like this one. We can move it around, like move it beneath, to group it with the converting function. So that means these parts can be centralized or like put inside a same module. Similarly, for the skip field, for example, we could move this into here, and then we can move these two into a same place, same file. So we don't have to worry about anything because they are like linked. Whenever we need to modify some logic about the filter, we can always easily change these to, adding more fields here. Or we want to filter out other stuff, we can always easy to extend this function instead of changing the whole big chunk. So if we look at the old implementation here, you can see that everything is mixed together, which makes it hard to understand, or when you have to modify one part, it's very hard to think what the impact is. It might be like had a bigger impact than you thought, but if you can reflect that this way, it's kind of decouple the operation into a smaller granular chunks that easy to understand and easy to maintain. And that's all I have for this first video of the series. I hope you enjoyed, and please let me know if you have any ideas or some refactoring challenges you want me to implement, say me to refactoring some issues you are facing in your day-to-day life. If you enjoy to watch video like this and learn from the process, please leave a message in the comment below and share it to your colleague or someone who is learning the refactoring or design patterns. And if you have any more interesting challenges or scenarios you want me to talk about, also leave a message as well. I will look into them, and hopefully we can have a video to talk about it. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next time.